Hey guys, Eric here with Hard 31. Sorry I'm a little late tonight on getting this out to you guys, but better late than never. I'll make sure I get these out every day. But the one that stood out for me today was in the Proverbs 14 was 23, and all labor there is profit, but idle chatter leads only to poverty. And this just talks about stupid boasting about what you're gonna do. I'm gonna do this, and there's people you've met, and they're kind of annoying. Is that all they do is talk, they never do. They never back up anything they talk. It's more about walk the walk, don't talk the talk. When it comes to faith or anything in life, I've run into people that talk about fitness all the time, and I'm going to do this, or I could do this, I coulda, shoulda, woulda. Go do it. All right, just go do it. Don't sit there just brag about stuff you've never done. And I always say Lord willing too, because I don't know what the Lord has for me. I've learned to say that. I used to like talk about I'm going to do this. One time in my life I was going to move to Mexico, and I was going to make all this money in a multi-level marketing thing. And the Lord had other plans for my life. I thought I was going to live in Miami and South Beach. There was that phase. I mean, all these things I used to brag about, and never happened, because I finally decided, you know what? It's not, my life is not my own anymore. It's the Lord's. When the Lord got a hold of me, it was like, okay, I'm just going to go where the Lord tells me to do. I'm going to do what the Lord tells me to do. I'm not going to make these claims of stuff that most of it isn't going to happen. It's kind of like being a false prophet. You start predicting these things for your future, and they never come to fruition. It makes you look silly. So make sure we're just doing, we're not just running our mouths. We talked about it yesterday, is watching our mouths in that capacity. Well, I think boasting is another area we got to start watching. Is, only thing we should be boasting about is the Lord. And nobody likes somebody who just always talks about themselves and brags. It's not a good look. It's not godly. It's not Christ-like. In fact, God doesn't really like boasting. One of the more popular passages was, you were saved by grace and grace alone, not by works, so no man should boast. Being humble is important, and especially being humble about things that you haven't even done yet. So you might share a goal with somebody like, hey, you know what, I want to bench press 300 pounds, or I want to run a marathon in under 3.5 hours, or something like that. I'm going for this goal, but I'm not, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to be a millionaire. I'd like to be a millionaire, so I could actually be able to affect more ministries. So I can be able to bless more people. God willing, I'm going to get there, but not, the stuff you hear people talk about. I had a friend in high school who always had the next get rich quick scheme. And it was just kind of like we started to roll our eyes, because it was like, okay, here we go again. It's the next big get rich quick scheme, and he'd never stick with anything. He was always looking for that quick fix. And I think God's really about respecting the process of faith, about building anything, building wealth, building a business. There's a process there. We have to respect that process and take our time, and not just sit there and beat our chest. It never is a good look. Number two is, I always think about vision too. Where are we going in this life? This is something I ask people when I go out on outreach. What's the purpose in life? And I think about when I start getting self-pity, or feeling sorry for myself, or getting weary, or a little self-righteous. I always think about, I have to stand before God one day and give an account for the life, and and I always think about, too much whom is given, much is expected. And so I want to run this race, and I don't want to retire. Like I said, the retirement is get all I can and then sit on my can. That's just not who I am. Is going out and with going out, sprinting to the finish line at the end of this life. I think like Billy Graham was still planning things in his 90s. Some of these great men of God, Lester Summerall and some of these other guys, were still making plans to how could they could advance God's kingdom when they're in their 80s and 90s. And that's how I want to go out. I want to come up and hear this, this 2 Timothy 4:7-8. I have fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. Now there lays a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but all who have longed for his appearing. So all of us that our heart is to serve the Lord and do his will in our life. It's like running a race. We want to finish the race well. We don't want to limp across the finish line. We want to sprint. And so I read that one every morning. It's one of my passages I read, because it's sometimes we talked about fog at the high school ministries last night. Sometimes life can get a little bit foggy and you can't see what's ahead, but that's the finish line we're shooting for. And I always think about hearing that, well done, good and faithful servant. I want to hear that when I see the Lord. That is the ultimate goal above any deadlift, bench press, body fat, financial goal, anything like that. That is the ultimate goal. That's where everything's moving towards. that's personally what drives me, is because I know I have a healthy fear of the Lord, that I know I'm going to have to give account for my life. And I don't want to come in there and have the Lord say, well, I could have had, I had this for you to do. I had this for you to do. You're in heaven, but there's a lot of things I had for you that you didn't follow through on. And, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go, and none of us does. But I always think about that. I want to be able to say that to the Lord. I've fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I finished the race strong, working for you and your kingdom. Not because I want to earn my way in, because I love you and I'm obedient to you. Because you did so much for me. I want to give my life in service to you. Because I have a debt I can't repay. So. Hope that makes sense, guys. Loving the interaction on this group. This has really been a fun group. Thanks for the prayers, Bo. Thanks for the call out on my 90s music, Gary. But you know what? Sometimes we don't see things, and sometimes things are affecting us. And it's kind of like mouse holes in the house. Somebody points out there, hey, there's a hole where the mice are getting in. Maybe want to lock that sucker down. So it's just about keeping each other accountable, right? All right, guys. Love you guys. God bless you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.